we'll start with, like I said, yeah, I was thinking about on Wednesday getting into it, but given we do so many topics in an hour, I was like, no, this could eat up some time. So yeah, I guess where did this all start? TechCrunch, I guess really was the beginnings of Google Plus is dying and dead and this and that. It was I remember even all the folks in our chat room were just going like shaking their heads and going, really, TechCrunch, really. So yeah, what was it? I guess they shuffled some employees around, they changed the guy who runs Google Plus, and they somehow decided that was meaning that they were shutting the thing down.
Yeah.
Right. It was kind of a perfect storm of that stuff coming together at once. It's a time of, that article might not have gotten any traction at all if it wasn't for the fact that Vic left, and it's undeniably a major thing when the founding father of something like this suddenly announces, thanks for all the fish, I'm gone. Doesn't say much about it. It seemed to be portrayed as a amicable departing. He said, thanks, Larry. It's been great working with you. Great working with the team. Larry Page makes a statement. Vic, you were awesome. We'll always have great memories. We go on from here. Blah blah blah. Vic says, I'm not saying yet what I'm going to be doing next. Just on to the next adventure. So that creates an atmosphere in which this guy from TechCrunch can step in with a couple of rumors that he has from unnamed sources within Google, saying that the Google team was being
right. It could have been one of the janitors, right?
Yeah, right.
My unnamed source at Google that was sweeping floors.
The thing about it is, it all depends on who you believe. But I talked with Jonathan Zunger, who is the chief architect of Google Plus. That's his title. It's pretty high up, and he was laughing at this whole thing because one of the things that the TechCrunch article was saying was like, oh, we heard that they're moving all the employees of Google Plus, somewhere else. So the guy assumed, the author of the article, or assumed that this meant they were being reassigned, redistributed, that they were being spread out, which is what you do when your division is dying. You either fire people or you move them to something else.
Right. And it turned out this change, wasn't it? They basically were just
they're actually moving to a bigger building. Yeah. And he and some other Googlers confirmed to us that not only is Google Plus not dying, but that there's still major investment in it, that they have projects going on that are still fully green lighted, innovations, developments that are coming up. Just today, somebody sent me some insight into the Android code. Usually, a lot of times you can look into that and see place markers that have been put for features that are upcoming, and it looks like there's some Google Plus related features that are that may be coming into Android soon. So overall, it was a lot of rumors just thrown up, and the gasoline on the fire was Vic leaving, and that is a significant event, not to be ignored.
Yeah, none of it really rang true to me at the time because there's been such a commitment that as I always say, is all roads lead to Google Plus. You know what I mean? You need an account to sign up. And it's so they're so entity driven, meaning they're so individual driven, and to say that personalization of search, how it's just across everything, like comments on YouTube, as we know that, somebody comments on YouTube, boom, it's on Google Plus and vice versa and what have you. It's integrated into YouTube, for crying out loud. How does none of that make sense of we're gonna kill this thing because it's integrated throughout the system now. But I think some of the premise that they want it to be a destination as opposed to a social networks per se, I think some of that makes some sense. I could see that that's their thinking, that Google, they want to go, well, obviously they're beyond being a search engine now, but that even Google Plus isn't a direct, let's go fight with Facebook. It's more of a, here's our destination, here's what we want people to just come and search and find and interact and whatever.
Search engines are always trying to become destinations. When you look at where most people go for shopping, they don't say Google. They say go to Amazon or someplace like that, right? Like they are smart in that way. But you got to look at it too from this point of view. It's TechCrunch. I mean, is this the first rumor they've ever printed that turned out to be total nonsense? They even, if you read between the lines in that article, they actually insinuate that. Vic, I can't pronounce his last name, so I'll just call him Vic. he quit. That's what they're saying. Kind of insinuated that in the article, just in one line. I tend to read stuff like that pretty carefully.
Yeah, nobody knows that, and that, you know, what was crazy was that it got repeated. There was other publications, Business Insider, Forbes, Time, all sourced that article and many others, that TechCrunch post, as being factual, as being like, okay, you know, Google Plus is being killed. Vic was, you know, some people saying like he was forced out, he was fired, he quit. I mean, he did quit in one sense. The question is over whether or not he was, you know, he was forced out, or Google Plus was going to be killed, so that's why they fired him. For one thing, Vic is still actively using Google Plus every day. So, you know, if he really was an outing or a firing, you know, that seems a little unusual. But I think the bigger, you know, what I want to bring in, you know, I haven't actually dwelt much on the TechCrunch host, because as you guys are pointing out, the stupidness of it is obvious to anybody that looks at it. Two things I want to say quickly. One is that the people who are willing to believe or go to print and saying like Google's going to kill Google Plus don't have any understanding at all of what it is and how it's been, as you were saying, David, earlier, that it's been baked into now everything Google. And that's what in my article, my post that I put up last week, that's now an article on Marketing Land. You know, essentially what I was saying is like it's so big, and it's done the job they wanted it to do. They used it, first of all, they used it as the catalyst to unify the Google privacy policy. So everything on Google now is under one privacy policy, which means they can track users across all their products. Second, you know, it did generate a tremendous amount more Google accounts. Now again, you know, it doesn't matter at the end of the day if those people are using Google Plus or not, you know, if they're posting and interacting in Google Plus, because they have Google accounts, and more of them are using it, using the web logged into Google now. And Google sign in and all these things are, you know, are causing it and generating that. That's what Google wants, because the real magic of Google Plus is the two things, like as David said, you know, the identity, gaining identities of people, and second, the data acquisition. And they've got that now. You know, they don't need to kill it. What they will do is, you were agreeing, and I guess the third thing I want to say is, I do fully expect to see the Google Plus brand more and more de-emphasized. They're not going to be pushing it out, I don't think, as front and center anymore. I think that's the change that we may see, because that just hasn't worked for them. It's not gotten them anything positive.
There's a variety of reasons for that. You know, the being so slow to be able to get the vanity URLs and things like that was a huge problem. I think that was something they might have dropped the ball on. You know, because why do news stations and everyone else use Twitter handles and stuff in their broadcast? Because it's easy to do. It's just at whatever. You know what I mean? It's nice, short, and sweet, and same way, you know, to a degree, Facebook. And I think that was part of the problem with any kind of, you know, getting it out there as much. So they're starting to get there with that. So
you could go back through the whole history of the thing. I mean, we didn't have brand pages for the first almost 6 months. You know, brands were not allowed to be on. Remember the whole thing that, you know, Mashable came on and created they wanted to be on Google Plus, so they created a personal profile, which is the only thing you had, and they got banned. You know, the profile got banned because you weren't allowed to have a brand profile for 6 months. It's typical Google. You know, it's like they're
arrogance, you know. A little bit of arrogance, you know. A
little bit of arrogance, a little bit of just being engineers that, you know, they just put things out there and tinker with it as they go, and they see everything as a long-term project. You know, but it didn't get the chance. You know, it just didn't get the momentum to really make it anything that would be a real thorn in the side of Facebook, which I think they may have intended. They may have hoped it. You know, a lot of people, there's a lot of kind of like now, you know, Monday morning quarterbacking of, well, they never really wanted it to be a Facebook competitor. That was never the plan. I don't believe that. I believe they would have loved for it to kill Facebook. They wouldn't shed any tears if it did that. But it never got for many reasons, it never got the chance to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know. For me, you know, and even talking to people, I think Facebook's been shooting themselves in the foot a lot lately too. So there's definitely still an opportunity here. You know, I was joking yesterday that we've been noticing, like, not, you know what it's like on Facebook, and you're a brand. You get 1,000 to 10,000 people following you. They literally have pushed you to the point where you've got to use promoted posts if you actually want to reach these people that wanted to follow you, because it's not showing up in their timelines. You know what I mean? What's that, Terry?
If you have 2,000 people,
you're lucky, what, 60 of them see your post?
Yeah, not even.
Yeah.
I've seen numbers like 20, 30. It's obnoxious.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to kill it, because pretty soon all that will be in people's news feeds are what people are willing to pay to see.
And that's it. You know what I mean? And now with this delayed stuff, like, Mark, we were doing our radio show the other day, you know, and on Wednesday. Oh yeah, when you came by. And so I go over to Facebook and I said, okay, the show starts in 5. And that was through my personal account, not through any of our pages or anything like that. And our guest host Steve there, it showed up in his timeline 14 hours later. It's like, yeah, great. Well, the show's long gone now. And it's that kind of stuff that's starting to get a little bit irritating for me. You know what I mean? At least I know when I'm sending it to my circles or whatever on Google+, I know they're getting it right then. And I know that all the people that are in that circle are actually going to at least have the chance to see it. So.
And I think this could be part of the play for Google+. You know, is saying, like, all they have to do is get it working, set it up, keep innovating it, and just outlive Facebook. You know, outlast them. That could be the whole long-term strategy. You know, we'll be here when you finally all get fed up with Facebook. By the way, we were starting before this whole kerfuffle hit the last week. We were starting to see what appeared to be kind of a shift on that. And brands at Social Media Marketing World back just a couple months ago, you know, Google Plus was front and center. And a lot of the keynote speakers were saying, like, you know, if you're a brand, you need to get involved with Google Plus. It's no longer an optional thing. You know, we're hearing, you know, just anecdotally, but in our own consulting business, partly because I'm involved with Stone Temple and people know my reputation, but we're getting increasing requests from our clients and our prospective clients saying, like, you know, one of the things we want you to do is teach us Google Plus and teach us how to get active on that. So
Google can make that happen. They've done that in the past. All they have to do is help SEOs figure out that Google Plus is helping their ranking some, and they're beating Facebook tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's but they got to leave that. They got to leave that.
It's very easy to make that correlation and that argument, because I've been watching it for a while, and there's a lot more than just correlation to promotion and posting. And if you think that likes and that other stuff matter, you don't know nothing about SEO, because it's not really indexable, folks. You know, I'm tired of hearing all this stuff about social. The only stuff that's really indexable is what's on Google+. Everything else does not matter, because it's not indexable.
This is key. Bill Bean in the group internal chat here. Bill Bean asked, you know, in a recent G+ post, Mark.
And Bill, by the way, this is not a formal show. This is a Friday hangout session, so feel free to just yip away. Don't worry about typing, man.
One thing, if you hang out with us, exchange ideas. That's what it's all about.
If you hang out with us enough Fridays, you know you just got to jump in there and run someone over, man. You know, you got to just get in there, man.
Why don't you unmute and ask the question, because I'd love to answer it, because I think it's key to what Terry was saying.
Sure thing, Mark. So in that post, you were, if I understood you correctly, more or less downplaying the Google Plus user numbers or growth numbers when it came to trying to justify either the, I don't know, the existence, but the kind of the importance of it. But with most clients, you know, whether it's a small business who's got the local dynamic to deal with, are more of an enterprise who's looking at this as a user engagement, do those numbers not matter? I mean, at some point in time, I need to know. Here's what I know. I can't do everything. I've got limited time and resources, so what's a priority? Mark, if you're telling me the growth numbers are irrelevant, I'm going to go back to Facebook where there's 1 billion people.
Right, and that's the thing that's been the tough sell. But what I've been selling all along, what I've been teaching people who are listening to me, what I'm teaching the clients that I deal with, is that to put it in a nutshell, I mean, that could be a whole long talk, but it's the reach that Google Plus gives you. You're referring to, I was replying to a post by Sergey Andrianov that was about, where he was saying how, he's compared to a stock market bubble that's now busting, and it's now basically realizing like there's not the big numbers here, and the numbers were exaggerated, and all that sort of thing. And I was saying, like, I was never one among all the people, I'm sure I've been labeled as a Google Plus evangelist, I was never one trumpeting those supposed numbers, because what matters most in search marketing is targeting and reach. And those are the things that if you understand Google Plus and you really understand how to work it right, you can build both of those. I built a following of 80,000 plus people on Google Plus. That means those people, when they're signed into Google, I am influencing their search results. That's the most direct result. Personalization of search.
And that's the one that's also something I'm forever trying to remind people. Is that like, well, I made a ranking factor, this and that, but no, if everyone's logged in and you have followers that you're engaging, so on and so on, and you've built your entity as a higher authority, you're showing up in those personalized SERPs, you know what I mean? And there's a higher chance of them being logged in to see you. So you're going from nowhere to page one with a little nice picture, the whole works, and that's an effect, and that's important. I think that's huge. You don't get that with Facebook. So.
Yeah, and that's
the other thing. If you've got all those users on Facebook, only 6% of those people are going to see it. So for you to get the same reach on Google Plus, you have to have I can't even estimate the difference in the number of people you'd have to following to get the same results. And it doesn't cost you nothing. Like Facebook, I'm tired of calling it a social network. It's a paid posting place, period. It will not last for that reason. People don't want to come and just see nothing but ads.
I couldn't agree more, Terry. And I was at Social Media Marketing World as well, and they said something along the lines of, if you use a hashtag and there's only 50 reshares, you can be a trending topic, because that's how few people are on it. So make sure to use a hashtag if you make a post on Google+.
Well, that's a little bit of a, I agree with that. First of all, there's a lot more than 50 people on Google+. But
of course.
But I'm saying that, what do you mean by trending? Because what a lot of people don't understand is that is highly personalized within Google+. Like the what's hot, for example. Sometimes people ask me, like, wait, I saw this post that had like 3 +1s and 2 comments, and it's showing on what's hot. I mean, I said, well, that's because it's not just what's hot anymore; it's what hot and recommended. And Google's using algorithms within your extended network to drive traffic to you. So, but yeah, the bigger point is there, and that it's about influence. When somebody says, well, I want to be on Facebook because there's 1 billion users on Facebook and there's only, so many 100 million on Google+. I'm saying, like, I don't care if there's 1 billion people signed on, with Facebook accounts. If I can't reach them, as Terry was saying, and I only need to reach the people that I need to reach, the people that that I'm targeting, and that's where I think Google Plus gives the power, especially when you start thinking about the ability to reach into Google Search and other Google entities, the influence it can spread. There's so many things, like just we mentioned YouTube comments a little while ago. A minor area, but the kind of thing is when they integrated YouTube comments into Google Plus, first thing that I noticed is that because I have a high authority profile in Google Plus, the default sort for comments on a YouTube video now is top comments. Well, what I've researched and proven is that one of the most important factors in that is the authority of the person's Google Plus profile. So a higher authority profile comment is going to rise to the top. That's a little tiny thing, but just shows again it's all about influence.
And engagement too. Like one of the algorithms that they had adapted or changed recently was deciding what things to show you randomly from people you follow or followers of friends of yours. And a lot of that, how frequent or how much that was going to happen, they were saying with this tweak is based also on engagement. You know what I mean? And we've seen this in the past, even in search stuff, that with personalization, I think it was Matt or somebody was talking, but he gave the example of if in the terms of email, if an email from a certain person comes in and you tend to answer that one right away, whereas other ones you might wait 3-4 hours or a day, you know, they can implicitly start to understand what, you know, this might be your boss or something important or that and so on. And they were trying to use that as the example to understand how this algorithm is working, meaning if I'm engaging with Mark a lot, then they're going to start to show me more of his stuff or that I might not normally see or random stuff that he hasn't shared because of that engagement. So which also goes back to, are you engaging your users? Are you engaging the people that you have following you, or you just got a business profile, you followed a bunch of people and you leave it at that, you know? And I think that's part of it too. The engagement numbers and how these algos are going to work is to a degree based on that. So
I think Android is where a lot of those employees were supposedly moved, supposedly, and I think that everything you said is everything that Mark said is in my opinion what's going to happen as well. And I think Google Plus is just going to get merged into Android. Kind of, in my opinion, I think it's going to be the way that iPhone has all their proprietary apps for messaging and whatnot. I think Google Plus is going to be the equivalent on Android, because Android was actually not like Google Buzz or not like Google Wave. It actually went somewhere and does something for them, right? And I think it's telling that a lot of those employees were supposedly moved over to Android. I think Google Plus is going to move over to Android as kind of a platform for that.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Josh, because one of the things about that, if that's true that they're moving to Android, that's not a strike against Google Plus.
Yeah.
The very reason that you're saying, I mean, we all know things are moving toward mobile. That makes sense. You know, integrate it there. You know, Android is another big reason why there are so many Google Plus or Google accounts, whichever you want to call them. But also, you know, one of the things that was supposedly evidence in this TechCrunch article that Google Plus was going to be killed was the rumor that some of the Google Plus features were going to be split off into these segmented apps, you know, like Hangouts and Photos and things like that. Well, you can do that without killing Google Plus. Hangouts are already partially that way. There is a Hangout app, even on iPhones, a separate app, and it's still a part of Google Plus Desktop. You can use it either way.
I noticed
no reason why spinning those things off.
I noticed that Skype now is made multi-person calls free again. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder what was going on there, Microsoft, because Microsoft owns Skype now. So
right.
I think the Hangouts might have had something to do with that, because yeah, they took that away a couple of years ago. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, you know, Terry and I often talk that, you know, this is, again, it's about them wanting to control entities and data and accounts and people. You know, if you're forcing everyone through this account process, which means, you know, if you want a Gmail account, boom, you've got a G Plus account, and so on and so on, and getting people more logged in. I think, Josh, what you were saying, Bill Slosky and I were in a hangout yesterday talking about a couple of different patents, and there was one that came out recently that I was, you know, quite bullish on, and as usual, because they're patents, nobody cares. But it was a very predictive nature, because one of the people in the show said, you know, he's like, you know, I noticed that, you know, I start to get results ahead of time before I go somewhere. And what this patent was, it was for Android mobile, really, and what it was looking at, let's say, and so it's predictive on temporal scale, meaning if every day they know through your Android that you're going from here to this part of the city, they can make that inference that you must work there because you're going there every day. So, you know, now they could start showing you content of things along the way. If every Thanksgiving you're going from Chicago to New York or something, you know, okay, they can assume you're going to see family. They even broke it into, like, in the springtime, you're going towards this part of the town or out to this town where there's a golf course because you're playing golf. So the point being is they can start showing you, those search results will start to be more of a mix, like in Android or even your other stuff, but it's through mobile that they're tracking this, predictably start showing you things based upon where they think you're going to be or what you're going to do weeks and days ahead of time. And I think with the Android and that kind of thing, that's part of what they're doing, and that's going to be huge. You know,
yeah, Barry Schwartz today on SEO Roundtable posted about, you know, a feature coming into Google Now where you can, if you've been searching for boots and you walk past a boot store, that Google Now will alert you there's a sale in that store on the boots.
Oh yeah, we had one of the Google photographer guys that does all the indoor mapping and that kind of stuff for Google Local. And he was showing us all kinds of neat stuff along that. And they have those little Wi-Fi boxes that Google gives to each of these stores now. Like say you're in a mall or whatever, and they have these little boxes like this, pretty looking little things, and Google gives these to the different stores in that mall. So just like you're saying, as you're walking through the mall now, it's picking stuff up and feeding it to your hey, by the way, over here, and it's really some interesting stuff. And like again, if you're like even when they're doing their photograph, they're actually the Google indoor maps and stuff. They're also doing restaurants, and they're sucking up the menus and things of that nature. Yeah. So yeah. This stuff's getting more pervasive all the time.
Let me go back and play devil's advocate a bit based on things that Terry and Mark are both saying, because I hear some of this kind of same thing from clients. So let's say 1% or 6% of what's happening with Facebook, I can get some attention from them. The number is enormous, though, right? And more so for some than others. So I mean, it doesn't do any good to overgeneralize. There are specific industries or niches who have a particular advantage in that platform over others. With Google Plus, I think we all see and believe, look, here's the trajectory. Here's where they're going. You don't want to be late to this game. But some businesses might say, I'd rather have 1% of what Facebook will give me than 80% of what I'm not getting from Google Plus, because it's not realized yet.
Two different audiences too, Bill. I would say that Facebook, if you have a consumer product, you're not to be on there. If you're marketing to other marketings, by far, Google Plus is the best place to be, because you're not having to put out any money to get in front of those people.
Look at this Hangout. If you're marketing to people like us, you should be on Google Plus doing it.
Right.
And here's the other thing that's, but this is a difficult sell, and I understand that, because it takes some vision, some forward-looking vision. What I've been saying, and we've done this with some clients. We're saying, like, if you have the vision for this, okay, instead of looking at Google Plus and looking around and saying, like, well, my customers aren't here, I'm going back to Facebook. Say, like, ooh, my customers aren't here, my competitors aren't here. I can claim this space. And I can begin to do strategies like doing expert hangouts that draw audience here, build a community here. You bring the people here, that you own that vertical here, and you own the influence into Google that you're building by building an authoritative profile here. We've seen businesses do that, but it's very, very few that have the vision, because that takes an upfront investment to build that toward future benefit. It's much easier to say, like, well, I'm just going to stay on Facebook, where I know if I pay X number of dollars to promote a post, I'm going to, X number of people are going to see it, and I'll make immediate sales. So it's kind of a short-term versus long-term vision thing, which is a harder sell, I'll admit.
Some teams hit singles and doubles. Some hit home runs and grand slams. I'd like to be the guy hitting the grand slams. I can give you an example that's exactly like that, Mark. When a few years back, when YouTube came online, the day that Google bought YouTube, I went to the owner of a musical instrument store and said, you should start a YouTube channel, right? His store now gets most of their traffic from YouTube. 30 million downloads since he started putting his stuff up on YouTube. And it was perfect for it, because musical artists want to see the guitar being played, what it looks on a person, how it sounds, and by just working in that niche, they now own it on YouTube. We were already doing well with text, but the video sells much better for them. The quality of the leads is much higher.
But that took some vision on their part, didn't it? Because it wasn't immediately apparent. It was that vision to understand, like, holy crap, Google owns this now. That's going to buy me influence in the future. If I get in on this, if I work it right, if I build authority and influence here, that influence will spread, because that's what Google does. But again,
and I think that's very comparative to Google Plus, where it should end up. We use things like, and from an SEO standpoint, you're using this personalization of search to what's the cost of getting from page 3 to page 1 in this SERP? It could be tens of thousands of dollars. Now, if you've got a strong presence in Google Plus, you're getting up to page 1 through personalized login people, but that's far more common than it used to be. You're up there in no time. And the same thing with Terry and I. We've done this many times, meaning we'll have a query space of the client or something else, and we'll look at it. You can force video universals. Google wants to put a video in there. They just don't have a video to put in there. And consistently, time and time again, we've been able to go and create videos for the client or whatever, and a week later, bang, you've got that video now in the universal. So now you hook that up with again, that your YouTube profiles are also people that were hooked up to us there are now hooked up through Google+. It has that cross rollover effect now, and it's a lot cheaper to get yourself up SERPs that way than it would be to do it naturally.
I keep telling my clients a similar thing. If there's not a video there and the query deserves diversity, put a video there, right? If there's not a scam report there, put a scam report there, because Google likes to rank scam reports and videos. If there's not a author kind of article review, then do that. Don't try and just throw links at it and rank your EMD again and again and again.
That's the worst way to do it, actually.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable.
Yeah,
that is subject to what I call link rot.
Yeah. There's many reasons why that is risky.
Yeah, I mean, using those things, using Google+, using YouTube, using all of these tools combined, people like me have been able to plaster our face and name all over a lot of space that would have been very difficult for us to claim by old line traditional SEO. And another area where that's true is we've been talking about personalized. Yes, the biggest effect is definitely in personalized search or people who are in your network, but it is quite possible to rank Google+ posts in search. Now you're not going to rank for short keywords. You're not going to rank for money keywords. But if you're trying to build influence around a topic, things like that, I have dozens and dozens of examples. I have posts that I put up that are number 1, number 3 for keywords that get regular traffic, not in the millions, but they get regular search traffic, where my Google+ post 2 years later is number 1, 2, or 3 on Google search.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot actually, more and more lately. I was searching for a couple of things the other day, which were, again, like you're saying, somewhat longer queries. But and I started seeing, Bill Slawski, because I was looking for a certain patent or some sort of thing like it. And, there's not just Bill Slawski, but there's actually a G+ post that he'd made, and so on and so on. Is that kind of why you've been doing some of the, Mark, you called it tomes, did you? Is that, Mark, you're quite known in our circles for your tomes and your long-winded written Google+ posts. Is that part of your experimenting with that? Is to actually creating content on Google+ to see if it'll rank and so on?
I have been known to call it a tome, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably a polite word for it. But,
well, I'm accused of being tactful. I try.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Marge. Yeah, people have called it other things, but it works for me. It does work for me. First of all, because Google+ supports that kind of content. It does to a certain audience. It is attractive. It is engaging. And it makes substantive content that, because it's like one more place where I can get traction into the SERPs, and when people come to it, they see something substantive. It's not just a link to another post, but oh, there's something right there. I clicked on this link in Google. It's a Google+ link, but my gosh, I'm getting useful content right there. And who's this guy Mark? And I should follow him. And and it works. I mean, it's personal branding. I go to a lot of conferences now, and I run into people all the time that recognize me and know me, not just from Google+. They may not even use Google+, but they've seen me in their search results, both through Google authorship and through Google+. Yes?
Go ahead, Marsh.
My question about putting such lengthy content on somebody else's network, and I don't mean to sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, but I mean, if you're going to put that much energy into creating content, wouldn't it be wiser, quote unquote, to put it on your own site and then start a smaller conversation that drives people back to your site to read the content? Or just help me out with this. That's my question.
It's a great question, and my answer to it is I do both. I do it all. Now, I might have a little bit of an unfair advantage on people, and I was telling David in the green room before we started that I get paid to do that. That's my full-time job now, is to create content. But so I make sure that I have, and usually my most substantive, the posts that I really, really, really want to be known for are going to be on my home blog, which right now is the Stone Temple Consulting blog. But I post, long-form content on Google+. I do it now on LinkedIn. I've got the LinkedIn publisher platform. Been experimenting with that. My idea is I want to show up all over the place. And every place where I show up, I want to be the trusted authority for what I'm talking about. So to me, it's all like an experiment. And I realize that it could go away tomorrow. If something did happen to Google+, or my account got banished or whatever, I'd lose all that I did on Google+, but I'm diversified. I've got great content out all over the web. So any one thing goes down is not going to hurt me that much.
And even, Marge, I would even say, let's go back to the YouTube thing. Then if I think along those lines, then why would I ever put my videos on YouTube? You know what I mean? Well, that sounds stupid. Anybody who's doing video knows that you want your videos on YouTube. It's so, it's almost the same thing. So yeah, my content, video content, is on YouTube.
I have an answer for that, David. I mean, you put it on YouTube because it's cheaper than setting up your own video server.
Well, sure.
No, it's because you don't get
but that's where the people are. Yeah, it's the tree falls in the forest. It's that whole tree falls in the forest.
Another angle, since we know.
Boy, I heard too many things at once there. You want to break that up? I mean, you were all answering the question, but my opinion, I've always recommended to people to use YouTube because, well, what was it, 2008, 9, somebody called YouTube the second largest search engine, and I had never really thought of it as a search engine, but I did some looking around and studying and said, yeah, it is. People are searching there for stuff. And it is a great way to serve up videos, but people also put videos on Amazon S3. If they want them protected or they want better tracking on them, on the analytics. So, there's varying schools of thought. Do you have to use YouTube? No. Is it smart to use YouTube? In my opinion, yes.
Well, here's another angle too.
Gives them data that they can't get anywhere else. Try and rank a video that's not on YouTube, and you got a big job on your hands.
Here's another angle too. So the whole point of the content, right? The assumption is if no one sees it, it doesn't make any difference where it is. So your objective has to be that people see it. With that in mind, taking advantage of Google Plus and now the LinkedIn Publisher platform, you immediately are accessible via a phone app, whereas my personal blog or our company website, we don't have an app. And trying to get people to subscribe to our app to consume our content would essentially be impossible. However, with the LinkedIn and Google Plus apps, people can easily consume my content there. It's irrelevant to them where it is. It just needs to be convenient and easy to consume, right? And if I think I can compete with LinkedIn and Google Plus or some other app, well, by all means, I can certainly invest and try to do that. But this goes back to I need to fish where the fish are with my content, and so I think that's. I'm not sure how much Mark, you and Eric kind of thought about that, but
that was my point a moment ago. That's why I create content not only on I try to have columns on good authoritative posts. Just got the social media column on Marketing Land. Eric does similar kinds of things, content out there, but also content on these social apps or social sites that allow for that longer form content. YouTube is one of those, and you made that point very well. But Google Plus, LinkedIn now, where you can publish this longer form content, we want to be everywhere where our audience potentially is, and we want them when they're there. We want them to see us as being one of the the main authorities in the space that we want to appeal to.
And I think when you're putting content itself onto Google Plus, it also it's a lot stronger way of building a following. I don't think people really, read a post on my blog or something and go running over to Google Plus to follow me or something like that. You know what I mean? I think it's the content on Google Plus. Yep. But you know me, Mark. Half of my comments on your post or other people's are, it's a post itself. You know what I mean? I had one yesterday. It was 110 lines just in a comment. Marge, which that could have been a small blog post for crying out loud.
I built most of my following by posting on the technical SEO forum, Eric's forum, right, Dave? Yeah. Every time I post there, I see 1 or 2 people follow me.
So yeah, I think there is a point to be made as far as Again, Marge, if I'm doing some really in-depth kind of content or something, obviously I'm going to put it on my blog or Search Engine Watch or Land or somewhere like that. You know what I mean? If it's something that I'm, really trying to, as a cornerstone piece. But if it's, something that's, maybe 1,000 words long or something like that, and that's fairly light, that it's not, some definitive, evergreen type content, I think it's worth putting on the Google Plus or something like that. Again, Facebook, I wouldn't even bother because I don't know, what, of my thousands of followers, 50 people are going to see it. Not so much, but
we'll give them money and more will see it.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah. We'll give Facebook some money and they'll see it. But,
well, it depends a lot on what your goal is too. I mean, whether you're into branding, if you're just trying to disseminate information, if you're trying to attract traffic for SEO purposes to your site. Google Plus has great uses depending upon what your goal is.
Well, obviously, I'm trying to build my author rank.
Excellent. Hopefully you're not hinging your whole business plan on that one.
Just to make sure and focus on that keyword density, Dave.
Yeah. LSI, man, for the win.
There you go.
Those LSI keywords, those are the ones. That's what does it, man.
Oh, yeah. So
I think that is how the business has really changed, too. When I started out, we didn't really optimize for search engines. We optimized for audience. We looked for an audience, and that helped us in the search engines. We've come full circle. Now you look for audiences, not to get links so you rise in the search engines. It's really gone back full circle.
Right, and that's really the way it should be, right? I mean, you really want to be in a world, well, depends on who you are, where you're focused on adding value. At least for me, that works a lot better.
Yeah, and again, I don't think you could say it enough that there's just so many signals that Google can pick up from this. It's night and day for me. I seriously am far more active on Google Plus than Facebook, regardless of the fact that, obviously Facebook has more people, and even a lot of my audience engages more over there than they do on on Google Plus. But there's just so many signals you're building through there. Again, before you came on there, Eric, we were talking about, from personalization of search to, building authority and things of that nature. You know what I mean? It's just it's more than, I think people are short-sighted when they think it's just Google Plus. I don't think they're quite getting it because it's so tied into YouTube now that comments on YouTube go back and forth in and out of Google Plus, and that's slowly drawing people in from YouTube. Some of them kicking and screaming, they don't really like it. Some of the YouTubers kind of bitch about it, but it's slowly even drawing from that audience, and there's a fairly good sized audience at YouTube, and certainly Hangouts. Well, what can I say?
I'd like to take advantage of having Eric and Mark both here. To the degree that it's appropriate. I think from my perspective, I thought Eric demonstrated the kind of thing I think brands are going to start looking at and bringing. I'm sure Mark has tons of redeeming qualities. I would have hired him, given the resources, just for the Google Plus potential. In other words, right, we used to hire salespeople based on their Rolodex. So you talk about the personalization of search. If I could hire somebody who was in 100,000, let's assume somewhat legitimate circles, right off the bat, the potential value of that and its impact, almost immediate impact on search is just huge. I've got to think there's more traffic coming to the Stone Temple site now because of Google Plus than there used to be.
Yeah, no question about that. Although a key part of this is Mark promised $1 a day of revenue for every follower he has. So
all of you who are my followers, start sending those dollars in to StoneTemple.com. Okay,
it's an interactive post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
but
pass the jar, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that it tells a nice story. I mean, Mark is with us. I'm definitely not in his category in terms of followers, but I have a decent following by now too. And then we, through partnerships, are co-owners in the largest social media community here on the platform. And Mark founded the Author Rank community, and all those things sort of add up to a very powerful collective story, which is great. And we're actually beginning to have some existing clients of the company look to us for Google Plus specific services, which is great.
Well, it's a great example, I think, for a brand. I've been trying to convince little clients to think this way. It's hard for a business to want to invest in the success of an individual, because what do I do if they leave, right? However, you can't win just trying to pump the brand page, because nobody really likes that, right? They want to connect with Mark or with Eric or with David. And so I think, again, brands, there'll be a few that might catch a vision for this. I think Google, and just the step, Avinash is probably a great example of that, and some of those types with just enormous following.
Hey, Doc, if you made that thing flash, it'd be even more annoying.
Well, that's why I did it, Terry, just for you.
Yeah, so the situation with Stone Temple basically is that, for a long time, the company was essentially the Eric Enga brand, if you will. And then 2 years ago, we began sponsoring some of the search conferences, well, most of the major ones, actually. And so the Stone Temple brand started to be its own thing. And then adding Mark is a third dimension, and so because he obviously has his own brand. And in fact, just yesterday, for the first time, we started doing video shoots with some of our other senior people. So it's trying to make it more multi-dimensional. And we've got two other people in the company actually who are pretty decently active on Google Plus and slowly building their followings. So, it's sort of like it's a company thing, right? And I think that's the way you want to think about it.
And yeah, Bill, even smaller clients, anyone, I think even before all the days of social being big, we would always encourage them to, find somebody you can write that's in, to, get them on the blog and da-da-da. And I think that's even more so now, because you're trying to establish these entities and authorities connected to the concepts, So your brand is an entity, and then your staff are entities within that one. And if they are building authority, that builds authority back to the brand itself. You know what I mean? It's or like an author that's on publishing, New York Times or something like that. So I think it's more important now than ever that you are establishing these entities that are attached to various concepts that they're authorities in, which are attached to your brand. And I think all of this is feeding back through Google's algorithms, and a lot of the reason why I see them doing a lot of this is because they're trying to better understand entities and things of that links just aren't the end and be all they used to be. That citations of a brand or a person become just as important in SEO as links were.
We were talking earlier, we were joking about that author rank, and it is a good thing to joke about. But what you just said is very important, and we were talking earlier also about having that forward vision, how it's a harder sell to find businesses that will have that forward vision, that will realize like what I'm on Google Plus for, what I'm on YouTube for in the early days of YouTube with Google. All of those things is investment in the future. We're in the very early days, as David, as you and some of the others here well understand, that of the entity search and what we call semantic search. It's still the baby steps of that. It's still not very fleshed out, but it's coming. It's what they want to do. And I think the people and businesses with forward vision are going to be doing everything possible, just like you just said so well, to get my entity established, to get my connections established, to give every possible clue to Google of who I am, who I'm connected with, who's connected with me, what I'm connected with, what I'm authoritative in. Those things are only going to become more important in the coming years, and I think the people that have invested in that now will be way ahead.
Well, the thing is, if you had have waited, right? I made the mistake when Facebook and Twitter started. Dave had to drag me onto those things when I laughed at him, said they're all nonsense. I don't want to waste my time there, right? I've done enough of that kind of stuff, remember forums. So, yeah. But when Google Plus came, I was right away, as soon as I got an invitation, I was on it. Because, like I said earlier, Google will make this work. They have the ability to make it work by just making it work with search. And they will do that. If you look at Hummingbird right now, right? If you look at the SERPs, all the people who say the SERPs are crap is because SEOs have not figured out how to make transactional searches work with Hummingbird. They haven't figured that out yet. When they do, it'll be just like when Google came on the scene and it was nothing but informational sites in the SERP, or a large degree of informational sites. We'll figure it out. It'll fix it. We'll fix it. That's what always happens.
Schema. Structured markup is how you do that.
Yeah, to a degree, but again, even on that one, structured markup and stuff, you know, I've got lots of my geeky type friends that are bullish on it, and they've been bullish on it for years. I think the argument with that's always been that, you know, adoption. And I think Google's finding ways to do this without it. You know, again, I appreciate it, but I think you know, I've seen rich snippets and I've seen tablature data and other things in SERPs where there was no schema or any kind of markup on the page. They're literally, Google is getting to the point they're like, okay, not enough people are adopting this, so we're going to go and start trying to figure it out ourselves, you know, and get around that, you know, so.
Miley, oh, you told me basically as much.
Okay, yeah, because that would make sense, because we were seeing that, and I think it is the adoption issue, that it wasn't getting enough adoption, so Google's going to figure it out on their own, you know, so.
I wouldn't add it to a site, but when I'm redeveloping a website now, that's always at the top of my list, is getting my head wrapped around that stuff.
One little tip for that is I noticed it could just be correlation, of course, but about 70% of the sites that are hit by Panda that I do analyses on that are also on WordPress, they all happen to have the H-atom or the H-entry structured markup, which is technically only supposed to be reserved for syndicated content, for RSS feed content. So again, it could be correlation, but I don't know why I would ever want to tell Google that I'm syndicated content. I don't think that would be a very useful structured markup.
Correlation. What is this? The Moz now?
Yeah.
click through our ranking factor now. Come on, right, Mark? Come on. Wow. Rand never did get back to us, eh, boys? Wow.
On what?
Oh, Mark and Eric and I were going off on a study. I think from it was the Moz one yesterday, was it, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of poked Rand a bit, and you know, made our arguments, and in true Rand fashion, he never came back to fight it out. So.
I've been too busy debating people with morality on my stupid article.
You think?
Post.
Oh, buddy, that one's been making the rounds everywhere this week. Yeah, I'm stirred at a. I don't know. I put your article into a couple. Hold on a sec. A couple of groups.
Some dog is not very happy.
The dog, Dave. Not good for public.
It's a little black dog in this kitchen scene we have here. Someone's kitchen scene, which I love, by the way. It's just sitting there.
That's Laura.
Yeah, this is what happens when you throw a Hangout open. You get
reacted to.
So, Mark, bullish on post ads?
Say again, I'm sorry.
Are you bullish on post ads?
I don't know if I'm bullish yet. They're interesting. We've been running. I'm trying to get this post done. It's almost done, ready to publish. Marge will be happy. It'll be on our home blog, not on Google+. But because we've been running those ads for about 2 weeks now, and you know, the only thing I can say about them is they do get high click-through rate for a display ad, and you know, I don't know how much of that right now is because of curiosity. They're different. When you see them on a display ad, you know, it says expand to hover. People aren't used to seeing that. They look different, but they aren't generating, for us anyway, in our very limited tests so far, they aren't generating engagement on the posts. People just opening it, looking at it. And they aren't necessarily even engaging. You know, I ran one that was trying to go for click-through to a landing page on our site, on our blog, and you know, unless our AdWords is not connected correctly to our analytics, at least in Google Analytics, I'm not seeing it driving any traffic. So where we had our Digital Marketing Excellence show yesterday, we had on the product marketing manager for it. Great show for an hour with him, Christian Ashlock. And it was interesting to me that he said that in the beta testing, which they did with major brands, some of the brands were very happy with the results that they got, but it wasn't for engagement on the posts per se. It wasn't like getting more +1s on the posts or getting more comments on the posts, but that they were able to drive through to existing campaigns that they had. For example, some of the biggest success they had was where the plus post ad opened up into a short form video that people could watch quickly, and that was enticing them into a larger viral video campaign that the brand was running. Eric, you want to add anything on what we've been seeing on that?
Of course I do. Yeah, in fact, what Christian said is that the target audience for plus post ads is people who are not active on Google+, and that's the purpose, right? So therefore, you can see you have this little window pop up with Google+, box in it with a +1 button and a share and a comment box and all that, but the far more likely action is the far more likely beneficial action is that somebody will click on the link and go watch the video or go to the post and read that, and it's a way of leveraging Google+ infrastructure to just promote your content that way. So that's essentially the way he positioned the program. The other thing to think about when you think about this is it's going to really need its own kind of optimization methodology, right? Because given the way the platform works, what is actually most likely to get someone to engage in it? Probably not your garden variety long form post, right? And Mark, I believe you shared yesterday that in our limited testing, the one sample size of 2, we had one long form post that was shared and one short form post that was shared, and the short form post got a much higher click-through rate, and people were more responsive to that. But other things, video does well, things like that. That's what people have been seeing, and even if it's a video, short video, not a long one. So it's going to be this whole science to how you optimize these things, like kind of every other ad platform.
So what we're saying is I might be wanting to use post ads. I might be wanting to use post ads to promote my presence on Google+, right? If I'm a brand, which then leads to bigger things, as opposed to directly dialing into analytics to see how many people have come to the website because of a post ad.
Actually, I think you're going to more likely see the benefit is driving people to the content itself rather than to your Google+ presence. Right. That was the conclusion that Christian left us with.
I think Bill was saying, though, on a larger thing, just more of a branding play, like people becoming aware of your brand and that the kind of content that you post, that you are on Google+, if they want to find you there, that's us rather than interaction with the actual individual posts. Is that what you were saying, Bill?
But more along the lines of just pure advertising as opposed to marketing. If I'm gambling on the longer play with Google+, and I've got to start the slow cooker, right, and think I've got to start getting people aware of this, if I've got a longer-term campaign in mind, when I really want to start pushing them there, get them comfortable with this and curious to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't understand, because as I understand it, the ads are not shown on Google+, right?
That's right. They're shown in your display network windows or your AdSense windows, if you will.
So it'd be pretty hard to build a following or really build a Google+ page off of those because the people aren't part of Google+, right?
For the most part, that's right. They're not part of Google+. So.
Right. Okay.
But I think if I were to expand on Bill's point, I think that presumably as the platform continues to grow and get more traction, then having had that presence out there in a persistent fashion will work to your benefit for the brand.
Now, it would help, if you could tag team with Google themselves, and knowing that they're going to be promoting Google Plus. But if we go back to the beginning of our conversation, and so what Mark was saying, and what you said in that your earlier article, Mark, if Google Plus is going to back off kind of the consumer focus with their branding, well, now if you're a big brand, you're kind of on your own to try to get people interested in Google Plus, right? Unless you're marketing to web developers or app builders.
Well, I think you've always been on your own. That was my contention in the beginning. Is that
sorry to jump in, guys? I gotta run. Just saying goodbye. See you guys later.
Thanks, Josh.
We could have talked about that thing.
So that was
come back.
Sorry, what was that?
I said I would have liked to have talked to you about that morality stuff.
Yeah.
Wish I had known you were leaving sooner.
Yeah, we wanted to get into your whole morality article today too. So.
Oh well, I could maybe stay for the 5 minutes, or 10.
Okay, we'll just quickly go through it then. I saw a lot of people, I think, Terry, on both sides of the argument with that one, his article this week. I'm not sure, Eric or Mark, if you caught it. Josh wrote,
I know Eric saw it. He even made his opinion known.
Would it be a diatribe, a tome?
It's a diatribe. It's definitely a diatribe.
Yeah, but. And I think that one of the things that is echoed with us on our other show is that, and I've talked to Googlers about this, including Matt and whatever, and, it's a fine line. Like, I do a lot of forensic and cleanup work, so I get very frustrated because the person getting hurt the most are these small business owners that just didn't know any better to hire some provider, and they hired some crap hat who did a bunch of crappy work, and here I am cleaning up, and, people are getting hurt. And is this going to hurt this provider? No, he's going to go out and get more clients next week. So who are you really punishing becomes the problem I have. So I do agree on a lot of what you were saying in that. And this is a problem. But when I've talked to Google about it, and again, I can understand their point, is that, basically Terry, I think is what he definitely agrees with Matt on this one, is that SEOs don't get it when you give them the carrot instead of the sticks. SEOs don't get it if you give them, because you were saying in the article, why not give them, positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement? And I think that's part of the problem, is that SEOs don't learn that way. Google has to literally go out and keep smacking the heck out of them for them to really get the message, and that's a lot of what Google says when I've talked to them about this kind of stuff. So
I don't know. I have to disagree respectfully with that. I think the science on Skinnerian psychology is pretty clear that over time, over a long period of time, positive reinforcement works far better than negative reinforcement or positive punishment, as they actually technically call it, because you're adding punishment. But of course, the correlation between A and B has to be very clear. That I did good thing A, and good thing B happened. One. But I agree that negative punishment certainly works. I mean, you smack somebody enough, they're going to stop doing what they were doing, right?
Right.
But
here's my problem with
that. You might get angry at that.
As someone who didn't do that stuff because I thought it was wrong, that it was not a long-term strategy, that just because it works today, it never will work forever. There's only certain things that work forever. And that's what we're left with now. And here's my problem with a lot of what you're saying. I got penalized for doing the right thing. Because in the old days, before, everybody got pushed right out of the thing. They couldn't rank for nothing. And I moved up the ranks, as I should, because I had done the work, right? Now I don't get that.
Yeah. No, I hear you there totally. There's been a lot of collateral damage, and actually I agree with you. A lot of the collateral damage.
Edge cases.
Yeah. Well, what a perfect Bernaysian public relations term, edge cases. It sounds so nice, so technical. Oh, they're edge cases. No, they're collateral damage. And so I'm going to be very clear as to what my argument is, because there's been a lot of confusion as to what I said. I know it was a long article, and I guess I shouldn't have expected people to read the whole thing. So I fully understand that. But I am not saying that Google is obligated to be nice to people. I'm not saying that people are entitled to the rankings they previously enjoyed. And on a business level, I agree 100% that it was a dumb idea to do risky tactics. On a business level, I totally agree. And at a business level, I understand what Google is doing. But my point is this, is that does not justify Google intentionally, and they've fully publicly admitted this, that they're intentionally trying to disenfranchise small businesses. They're intentionally trying to disenfranchise people. They are intentionally trying to hurt people. They have absolutely no justification for doing this. I'm not just saying this as a person. I'm saying this as someone who's taught ethics at the university level. Not that just because I have, that therefore what I'm saying is right. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying I'm not just some schmuck. I am some schmuck out on a mountain, but I'm not just some schmuck out on a mountain. I'm saying this in a professional capacity, and I really think Matt needs to rethink his strategy. They can very well prune their index. They're smart guys. They can prune their index without giving us penalties that are ill-defined, so they don't even announce when they're run anymore, and they hold people down for long enough intentionally that they can disenfranchise them, which was the entire point for some of their algorithms. So that's my point. You know, people are saying that I'm saying that Google is obligated to give somebody some. I'm not saying that at all. I was trying to be very clear in my article that Google thinks they're morally justified in dictating what is right and wrong, and they think they're morally justified in hurting other people, and they're not. That's my point.
Eric, you had some thoughts on this article too, did you?
Please.
Yeah. Well, I think it's. I don't believe I've ever seen a statement from Google that they're intentionally trying to disenfranchise small businesses.
Matt Cutts said in a video, they're trying to make Black Hat too expensive, and he's mentioned that they're trying to disenfranchise Black Hats. He never, of course, mentioned
That's not small business. Okay,
yeah, it's a different
very
small big business, is it? It's not Walmart. It's small business.
But that's in. Okay, those guys are actually breaking the rules. So
and
what you're saying is they're disenfranchising people who are doing things that do not comply with their rules.
What to do? Who are they to make the rules?
Like it if someone come to you and told you how you were going to build your website and instilled their values on you.
Eric's still got the talking stick here.
Sorry.
No worries. So, yeah, I don't know. From my perspective, you know, I think Google is. First of all, I'm not going to defend everything that Google does, so don't take it that way. Okay. So that's there you go. But at the high level, they do have a right to do what they think they need to do to make their product better and improve their search results.
So that's another argument that people have given me, that they have the right to do it. So sorry. So one, no, they don't. That's not how rights work. If you look at political rights, rights protect you from things. You don't have rights to do things. Rights protect you. Rights guarantee you certain things that laws enforce. There are no laws that say they can do this, and there's unfortunately no laws saying that they can't do this, right? So it has nothing to do with rights. Yes, they have the ability to police their index. It doesn't make it moral, right? If you want to say I have the right to self-defense, and some guy starts yammering on at me and throwing punches at me, I have the right to defend myself only up until the point that I don't excessively use excessive force. Essentially, I would say that Google has used excessive force. Yes, people were yammering off and being idiots. Yes, Black Hats we're doing dumb things. Terry, I totally agree. But it doesn't give Google the right to take a shotgun and blow their head off when all the guy was doing is just going like this. I don't like to argue in metaphors either, because then people start to extend the metaphor, and then then things get stupid. But all I'm saying is that Google does not have the moral justification for disenfranchising people. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I'll try to avoid using the word right, but I mean, every company I know tries to do things to improve their product.
Of course they do, when they do so at the expense of other people. And when I by expense, I mean like literally going out of their way to disenfranchise them. That's immoral. Yes, every business does it. Of course they do. I'm saying it's immoral. And I'm not just saying Google does it. I'm saying, sure, Walmart will do it. All these big businesses will do it. And I've written a book to that effect that I'm arguing against them all. Just that I happen to also be an SEO. And so I had a private conversation with Matt Cutts and told him not to do this anymore. And well, if you read the article, you saw what happened with the conversation. I got kind of charmed, and I was flattered he would talk with me, and so I actually was dumb enough and arrogant enough to think that I could actually come up with a technical solution to their problems, and that's how the conversation got sidetracked. And I should have stuck to my guns and said, no, Matt, I'm not talking about any technical thing. I'm not talking about any legal things. All I'm saying is you think you're morally justified in hurting other people, and that's what you're purposely trying to do, and you're not.
So, but that's the only way they can stop it and clean it up. How else can they do it?
That's my question, Josh. What would you have them do?
Like, what they're doing is rewarding people breaking their rules. That's what they were doing in the past. They were rewarding people for breaking their rules.
What about the morality of the people, that the legitimate businesses that should have been ranking, that were getting hurt, that couldn't get the business because black hat techniques were putting crap into the search results? And how moral is that? You know, what I would like to hear from Josh is, what would you have Google do?
Yeah,
that's a very difficult question for me to answer, and I'll try to answer it. It's what I tried to give Matt, and it was a mistake. So everything I'm about to say is under the proviso that I don't have to provide any solution. All I have to say is that Google is unethical from kicking people in the teeth, right? I don't have to tell them what they can do instead. But if they go and kick people in the teeth, that's immoral. However, under that proviso, they're smart guys. If you read my article, you know my opinion on this. They're smart guys. They can find ways to promote good content without purposely penalizing sites, without obfuscating the date in which the algorithm runs, without obfuscating how it runs, without purposely trying to not releasing Penguin for almost a year now, or well over 6 months, and keeping those sites held down by Penguin for this time. They don't have to do these negative things that are intentionally trying to disenfranchise other businesses. And Eric, I can probably find the reference where Matt specifically says that's what they're trying to do. There was 2 specific videos he put out last year, if I recall, that he mentioned that out of hand. Of course, he doesn't say it in the way I say it. He says, trying to make Black Hat too expensive to do anymore. But that's where I'm getting that from. So I don't really have a good answer for you, because I'm not Google and I'm not as smart as they are, and I don't have the I don't know exactly how many signals they have in the back end. I suspect they have way more signals than we expect. But I'm sure they're smart guys, and if they wanted to, they could figure out how to promote content without going out of their way to disenfranchise businesses. Instead of being draconic and not forgiving, they could be forgiving. Instead of saying that Wiz, I can't pronounce his full last name, but one of the guys who works in the web spam team, he specifically said their guidelines for determining whether or not a site should be penalized is whether or not they think, and I quote, it belongs on the internet. They are not the kings of the internet.
Poor choice of words.
Well, yes, but that's a perfect example of their moral elitism, right? That's their view. And Microsoft in the 90s was the exact same way. Microsoft in the 90s said, we're Microsoft. Like, I had a friend who applied for a job at Microsoft, and he said, oh, I'm not going to be able to get a flight. And the lady actually responded to him, we're Microsoft. We'll get you a plane ticket. Not that we'll send a private jet over, but because we're Microsoft, we'll say he will get on the flight, and they will put you on the flight. So it's the exact same kind of moral elitism that I'm saying Google is doing. It's the exact kind of moral elitist view that I want Matt to realize that he has, and I think you should change, because he's not on the moral high ground. These guys think they're the good guys in this movie. They're not. They're not on the moral high ground that they think they are. Not if they're going to kick people in the teeth.
No, again, for me, in various conversations with Matt over the years about this, the last couple of years, and again, I understand their view of it. For me, I know I've often just said that, if you start just devaluing links of certain types, directories, blog, guest blogging, whatever, if you just devalue these as opposed to penalizing someone for it, I think the word would get out, because that's how the word got out in the first place. Is SEO started figuring out anchor text works, and that these types of links are better than these types of links. So they were smart enough to figure it out in the first place. My argument is usually that stop with the actual penalization, and especially with something like Penguin. What, you got to wait 6 months to get out of the penalty box? You're out of business. You're out of business by then.
Exactly. And they haven't even released it. And actually, in the private conversation I had with Matt, he said the reason why they haven't released it lately is because of negative SEO. That negative SEO is so rampant and so bad that whenever they run Penguin and check the test results, it's horrible, right? It's not what
they want. Any good spammer at this point, we were talking the other day that they should turn it into, regardless if it runs 6 months, turn it into like Panda. Stop telling people the dates and all this kind of stuff, because what spammers are doing now is like essentially they all know it's coming in the next month because it's been 6 months traditionally. So all these spammers are, been churning and burning for the last 6 months, and they're just sitting there. As soon as it hits, next day they hit a button and they put up a bunch of new sites and start all over again. So is that fighting spam? Are you fighting spam at that point? It's hard to say, because I don't think it's really Penguin's having that effect on spam. Again, it's more of this. Again, if they start to just devalue links and make more, broader public statements, hey, directory links aren't going to work, these kind of links aren't going to work, this kind of stuff, you could keep doing it, but it's not going to work, go right ahead. As opposed to manual actions and making people jump through the
You've already said that, David. How often did you hear people touting guest blogging, all kinds of stuff that Google has said don't work? That does not work.
And they're Josh.
That guy who says, oh, they're telling you that, but they always lie. Oh, fuck it.
Well, they have done that, Dave, in some areas. For instance, by the way that they've structured their algorithms, forum comment links, blog comment links have lesser value. And that will work. If you devalue a link because it is a directory link to everybody on the internet, that's okay. But the people that are saying, if they don't like the links to my site, why don't they just ignore those links? That won't work, because then they take away any credibility of their link graph. They can't do that selectively. They either have to do it across the board to a particular type of link, which they have done in some areas. They've devalued them. I think that would make perfect sense. But I don't see them doing it. I don't see it to be a likelihood.
I liken it to this, Doc. It's like if Google, Dave's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm going to say. I liken it like this. It would be like just ignoring links and bad links would be like the PGA saying, okay, when you hit a ball out of bounds, we're just going to move it inbounds and give you a mulligan. Now you just shoot from there and it don't cost you nothing. And what does that mean? It means any loser can come up and join the PGA. And it does not reward excellence. It rewards mediocrity.
When I was writing this article, I actually had a lot of collaboration back and forth with Barry Schwartz, who actually is tweeting me like crazy to join another hangout, the Matt Storms and Sasha's hangout, because they're talking about this right now. I don't know, maybe Matt Cutts will show up to that one and we can have a public debate. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, not going to happen.
No, ain't going to happen.
No, not in a million years. At least I hope not. I think if he actually responds, I think I might be scared because probably with the legal team he'll respond. But Barry and I were talking a lot about this, and guys, I don't know what the technical solution is, but I know there's a way they can prune their index without being so draconian. All I'm saying is that they do not. There's a conception out there that Google has tried very hard to make like as if it is true. That they supposedly have the moral authority to disenfranchise people. They do not. It is. I'm telling you, it's immoral. If you want to debate why it's immoral, I have a book you can read, or we can talk about it offline. But I'm telling you, it's immoral. They don't have the rights to do it. They don't have a moral justification for doing it. It's kicking people in the teeth on the playground. And when the kid looks to you to justify why they did that, there's nothing that can come out of their mouth that will prove that it was a morally good thing to do.
But Josh, do you really think that there's much morality in business? I mean,
no, I don't think there is much morality in business. I'm not
even likely.
I'm a businessman myself. I'm not naive. I know there's not a lot of morality in business, but that does not change the fact that it's wrong, and it does not change the fact that if somebody asks me, and if they're arrogant enough to tweet all their public relations crap at me on a daily basis, then I'm going to mother-fricking say something about it. Can it be changed? Probably not, but that doesn't mean it does make it right.
Well, I don't disagree with that philosophy, but basically what you're talking about is having a corporation branded as immoral for a particular activity, and then asking legislators to regulate their morality. Talk about putting the fox to guard the chickens.
Yeah, that's my problem with it, Josh, a bit. You're giving human qualities to a thing. Like, the same with ethics in SEO. SEO can't be ethical because it's not a person. It's good and bad decisions. What's good for the client. If a guy's in porn, I'm going to cloak, I'm going to do everything it takes to get him ranked because that's what I'm getting paid to do. And it's within their rights to do it, provided they understand it has an inherent risk.
I fully understand, and on a business level, I fully agree. And again, as I said, they're smart guys. I'm sure there is a way they could do it. Like, for example, they could just ignore every link. The reason why they don't is strictly Machiavellian monetary decision. Is that just it would cost them more and more money to ignore more and more links. They could do what Danny Sullivan suggests. Every single link that is suspect in franchising businesses is completely immoral and just not morally justifiable. Do I think they'll ever change now that they've started? No. But it's a Machiavellian monetary decision that they're making that is not morally justifiable. And if they want to have the audacity to tell us, that they're doing no evil, that's when I lose it. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about it. That's when I just can't handle it anymore, because it's not. They like to take the high road. They like to think they're the good guys in this movie. They're not.
They can't be. They're a public entity. They're on the stock market. They got to do what the shareholders want, which is maximize profit. So, bottom line.
And there we have it.
So after that rant, now I'm going to go join the other guys.
Right.
Yeah, nice meeting you. Josh, have to come in again sometime.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great. Are you guys still doing the regulators, your podcast?
Every Wednesday, yeah.
Because I love listening to that, because you guys.
5 years now, I guess.
This place where I hear other people swearing about SEO, and so I enjoyed it quite a bit.
It's hard, people have us on the different shows, podcasts, or if I'm on Webmaster Radio or someone's hangout. Yeah, it's so hard for us to stop swearing. It's like, man, we're just so used to it over there.
All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for
have a good day, man.
And we'll see you guys. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, see you, Josh.
Later, Eric.
I have to go too. I have a client calling.
Yep.
And I know.
Go right ahead, guys. Thanks a lot for dropping in.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
absolutely.
Yeah, I got to get back to work or Eric will fire me.
All right, Mark.
Great chat, you guys.
Today. That's it.
Eric was still on. You heard that.
Yeah.
See you guys.
All right, guys. Take care.
Dave, you guys do so many podcasts and stuff. When do y'all work?
Good God, man. In between. Well, to be honest with you, like the podcast is an hour out of your day, really.
Yeah.
I mean, post-production isn't much because, once that's more about exporting it and, you're working while that's
Maybe
going on.
an hour of production on each show. Dave a bit more because he cuts a few videos.
So yeah, Bill, it's not like we really work hard to, we just grab some articles, go rant and, ramble on.
I've been working for peanuts for years. That doesn't bother me at all. If I was doing this for the money, I'd be doing something else, believe me.
Beverage.
Likewise, I gotta get a drink.
I'll do, Doc. I've just kidding. It was taking up the whole screen, eh?
Huh?
Yeah, when it was rotating at the bottom, I see the whole thing throughout the whole screen.
That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, when you did it there, did it again. Flashes for a second.
Huh. I'm using that mini cam that Ann turned me into yesterday. And right now I'm on Chrome. That when I dropped out a little while ago, my cable dropped out again, and then I came back in on Firefox. Firefox couldn't even find Google. And then you try to log in through a different browser. Of course, Google wants to send you a goddamn numeric code on your cell phone, which I don't have, so I had to go find the cell phone.
I just ignored those things.
Well, I didn't have any option to get in. I had to. So.
You almost need one of little burner phones just for that stuff.
I won't even have one for a client, so I ain't gonna get one for Google.
Well, I use my VoIP or Skype for everything, but that's not an option.
You're running VoIP?
Yeah.
Oh, is that through Magic Jack, Doc?
I have a Magic Jack, but I rarely use it anymore because the quality on Skype is 3 times better than Magic Jack. Too many breakups and garblings and whatnot, just a poor connection. I think their servers are probably saturated. But I use Skype quite a bit, and I signed up for premium Skype, so I've got unlimited, all calls unlimited in U.S., Canada, and U.K.
Okay, so Skype is acting as your VoIP then, basically.
Yeah, I have another one as well that I can use as a backup, but I use Skype for 90%. You know, whenever.
And that's hooked up to your phone number, Doc?
I have that option, but no, I don't use it that way. I only use it for regular Skype voice calls or for outgoing. I can call, but I don't have a number assigned. I could have, but I just, if I have a number, I'll get calls. So I don't have a number.
Cheers, Dave.
Skål.
That's it. It's Friday. Time for a drink. Oh, that's the sound.
Oh, wait. Is Friday supposed to be a limitation?
No. Every day, dude. Don't worry.
I didn't get that
You're
memo.
still safe, yeah. You're still safe.
Doc definitely didn't get that memo.
And if he did, he'd trash the puppy.
You're still safe, man. Don't worry.
I never used to drink, but then when I partnered up with Laura, it just drove me right over the edge.
There we go.
Before that, it was Marge, but I can't pick on her right now because she's not here to enjoy it.